Okay. Hi and welcome everyone. Welcome to, I think, is it the last panel? No, it's the second to last panel. We're super excited to be here today. My name is Shams Johnny. I work at Paradox Interactive, the evil publisher. We're just going to give you a brief intro regarding this panel, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves, and then I'll tell you a bit about the structure about this panel. So I'll start with myself. My role at Paradox is I'm the VP of the Unicorn Division, we call it. That's our call sign. The purpose of the Unicorn Division is to find and sign new games. So that's essentially why I'm here, to find new games. And City Skylines was one of those games that I helped sign. Yeah. John?
All right, my name is John Rickna, also known as Totally Moo, and I am Paradox Community Manager, and more specifically for City Skylines right now. So if you ever talk to us online, it's probably me you've been conversing with over all medias.
Hi, so I'm Carolina. I work at Colossal Order as a game designer, and I'm the lead designer on City Skylines.
And hello everybody, my name is Brian Shannon. I am also known as Gula on the marketplace. I'm one of the, I guess you could say, top modders, even though there's a really great mod community, and that's part of the reason why everybody's here today. So thank you very much for showing up.
Cool. The structure of the panel was pretty simple. We're going to divide it into 5 big portions, and we're going to talk a bit about different areas. John's going to focus on community. Carolina's going to talk about the development process behind making Skylines and the modding aspect of it, and our good friend on the end is going to talk about actually creating mods. I'm going to give you a kind of a high-level spiel about why we do modding at all. But I'm going to start and ask, how many in here have played City Skylines? Most of you. How many of you have used a mod in City Skylines? Yeah. How many here have created a mod? Yeah, this is roughly in line with what we see. City Skylines has about 60,000 individual pieces of mods that are available through the Steam Workshop. And we see about 3 to 5% of the community actually create stuff, while the vast majority, the rest of us, just enjoy the crazy stuff that we see in the game, for instance. So why are we here to begin with? Why are we here at all? And I'm just going to assume that some maybe don't know what City Skylines is. And City Skylines is old school, hardcore city builder. The reason why we're here today is to talk about the wonderful thing that is modding and how it allows us to build something great together. So I'm also going to start and talk about what modding is. And it's very simple. Modding is when you guys take the game that's released and change it the slightest bit, and it turns into something completely different. That is modding. It's very simple, essentially. It doesn't matter if you create new content or if you just change a little setting so the game runs faster or slower. That's a mod. You change it into something else that's perhaps better than what we put out. So when I'm out looking for games, one of the things that I look for is the game moddable. But modding isn't really for all games. If you want to broadly simplify it, you could say that there's a spectrum where games are either a kind of a platform or they're a platform or a sandbox, you might call them. On the other end of the spectrum, you have games that are very much experiences. I'll give you a couple of examples. Say, how many here have played Bioshock, the original one? Almost everyone. I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to pretty much assume that when Ken Levine set out to make that game, he didn't set out to create a very cool shooter. I think he set out to create and tell and share a very specific story, and that the story of adventure, right? And then they created a shooter around that kind of experience. But he really set out to do that. Then there's another game called To the Moon. Has anyone played To the Moon? It's a small indie game. It's very emotional. It's a 2-3 hour story, but that's what it is. It's a very limited kind of thing. There's also another game called Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, made by Starbreeze. That's also very story-driven. And those guys that set out to make these games very much set out to create a very specific experience compared to what we set out to do when we created Skylines, or generally what Paradox Interactive does with our games. Like Crusader Kings 2. Anyone play Crusader Kings 2? Who married their own sister? Anyone married their own sister in that game? It's a historical game about running a medieval family and keeping them in power, basically. But we try to make games that are we're not trying to tell a specific story. We're trying to create a sandbox where you guys tell a story with the tools we're kind of giving you. And for us, it becomes, when we're creating these kind of sandbox experiences where you're kind of dictating the terms, modding becomes a very useful tool, because we understand that we can only take the game so far. Once we put it in the hands of the community, we kind of assume that it will be much, much better. Truth be told, the worst version of the game is the one we create. Because it's all the crazy shenanigans that you guys come up with in the games far surpass what we can do with our resources, right? And the reason we want to do this is that, and I'm talking high level here from what Paradox does, is that whenever we look for games, or whether we do games, we try to follow a number of pillars that we feel create game experiences that are very compelling. We try to create games that are very hardcore, try and make them challenging. We want people to feel smart when they're playing the games. And we also try to make sure that we're not telling a story, you are telling a story by our games. And that's why it made a lot of sense to make Skylines. There were some other city builders out there, and they were fun in their own right, but we felt that the kind of game that catered to the kind of pillars that we do was lacking, and that's why we set out to do City Skylines. So how come we ultimately added Skylines, modding to Skylines? We didn't really need to. We could have just saved that money and blown it on kitten videos and cat videos and different things that we enjoy in the office. Or we could have spent the money on building other features, like small cities, or online functionality. That would have been another option for the spend. But we decided to do it because we knew that there was a very big and active modding community. And we're firm believers of the tenet that it is really the community that can make a game truly great. I think that every game has a Dota or a DayZ built into it that can be discovered, or games might even have several Dotas in them. But with our limited resources, and we have a short time span to create a game, we can't always find them. But once we put it in the hands of the developers or the community, we can really find really cool things in that. And ultimately, it's about providing value. Ultimately, also we know that by adding modding to a game, we can take it to places where we couldn't, and that gives a lot of value back to the community. And it gives us a lot of cool ideas of where we could take the game in another direction, essentially. And adding modding also means that you're giving up a fair amount of control. You could end up with things that are sometimes inappropriate in your game. Like there are, I don't know how many penis mods we have, but there are a few.
A fair amount.
Fair amount. And it's inevitable when you give it something to the hand of the community, right? But there are also a lot of cool things that we really, if we would have done them ourselves, it would have taken much longer time. And we know that maybe it's not the focus of what we're doing. But it also comes back to, in general, what kind of the policy we have when it comes to piracy. And Paradox doesn't really believe in fighting piracy in the traditional way. That only ends up hurting the loyal paying customers. From our perspective, a pirate is just like any other part of the fan base. They are our players and they're our fans, but the only difference is that they haven't given us any money yet. And that's because we haven't given them a strong enough value proposition. If we just given them a better value proposition, they would maybe pay for the game. And we don't really think that the pirates don't have money, they just don't want to give it to us because we haven't had a compelling reason enough. So it's up to us to create additional value for pirates or people not willing to give us money by doing other things and not adding DRM to our games. And one of those things that I mentioned would be modding, because that does add value to the game and it makes it very much cool. And we've ended up in a situation where if you want to enjoy mods in City Skylines, it's just much more of a smooth experience enjoying it through the Steam Workshop than it is downloading pirated torrents all the time. Although the pirates do compile the best mods into special DLC packages. So good on them. No, but I mean, ultimately the big takeaway for me is that every game has a DayZ or a Dota unlocked in it, and we can find it together with the community. And it's been quite a journey to see what kind of weird shenanigans come out of the stuff you build, including the penis-shaped structures. And with that, I'll hand it over to John and have him offer insights into the managing the community and how do you handle the weird content that people build.
I'm actually going to start on a pretty positive note with the fact that I strongly believe that a community or a game that features modding will have a community that trumps any other game or genre or kind of category group of people, because it gives an insane amount of depth to the normal interaction you'd see in a forum or a social media or anything like that. I mean, just having modding in a game gives you the chance to add several new feedback loops inside a community. What would usually be just a situation where it's gamers talking to the company and kind of discussing what's there in the game, you suddenly give them the power to talk about things that they have created inside the game, right? And this goes in several levels. It's not only that a modder shares something they have done on a forum and wants people to give them feedback on that or give them compliments. It's also that you get to talk about all your potential ideas and all your potential suggestions and kind of be able to maybe implement them yourself or become part of a modding team or do anything like that. And then we see stuff like this, that all of these screenshots are from heavily modded cities or mods that get shared on mostly our subreddit and just get, thousands of likes, so much interaction and so much positive interaction, because players often feel very relieved when they're allowed to somehow share themselves with the game, and not only with the tools provided, but what they have added to the game. And we also see a big thing where people want to improve on what's already there. So someone creates, say, a new power plant, and other one says, oh, well, I can create a better power plant. I can create a better sun solar system. I can create something that's even more amazing. And that kind of positive trigger doesn't really exist outside the modded community. And we can see, for example, Warcraft 3 is my favorite example of this, where people started doing custom maps. And it was kind of slow in the start, but when others realized that you could do pretty much whatever you wanted inside that game, it just exploded. And we saw things like, Footman Frenzy and Tower Defenses and Parasite and Dota. Yeah, Dota is a really great example. Tidehunter? Oh. There's so many great custom games were made inside of that, and it was kind of a positive community thing that was created simply because it existed, and people kind of get in there and saw, hey, there are mods. Maybe I can do my own thing. And it was very well provided with the Warcraft 3 map editor, and we kind of aimed at doing the same thing with our tools, because we strongly believe that everyone playing City Skylines is in some way a modder or an aspiring modder. We believe that even if you just play the vanilla game, you still compile and create something new with the tools provided to you. You're drawing something, you're creating something on the map. And there are very easy steps to progress from that with the map editor and with the asset editor, and just doing the simple things as in taking a Skylines house and adding a trash bin or a few extra lights. So everyone in our community is someone that is on the verge of creating something unique, and that creates just something that I believe is very, very positive. Because if you're a member of the internet, as I believe most of you are, you know that there is an immense passion. There's a very big need to express yourself. I mean, just look at forums and social media. You will see gamers talk for hours on end about the tiniest, silliest little things. There are so many people that talk about games more than they play them. And that shows that there's a big need for our gamers to express themselves. And we believe that modding is a very good start in expressing yourself toward a game. Especially when, you know, the basis is there and you kind of have that platform to work on, because not everyone can just start making a game and having that entire thing done by yourself, because it's actually kind of hard to make games. But with mods, you can be that tiny part of the game or a very large part of the game. Just look at Gula here, he's added tons of buildings to the game. We have people that have done like flight simulator mods. We have mods that change the graphics settings. We have that amazing Borderlands mod that makes the game looks like you're playing Borderlands. And you can just add your personal flavor to the game. And, I mean, it gives you the power to express yourself throughout a medium that someone else has created. And Shams kind of touched upon that as the worst version of the game is the one we release. That's the day one launch version is not bad by any means, but it's definitely worst. And eventually a game that features modding has the chance to become so much more and so much more wonderful. And everyone that has contributed to that and played that can feel like they're part of it. And it makes me very happy. And actually, I have some stats here that I find very interesting about modding and modders and kind of showing the power of it. So Shams mentioned that we have roughly 65 or 56,000 mods on the workshop. But we have 108,000 unique uploaders. So almost 110,000 people have at one point tried to upload something. And we can see that roughly 40,000 of them removed it again because they weren't really happy with what they have, but at least 100,000 people tried to add something to this game. And 54% of all our players use mods in some way, which is actually a very large number. I was surprised when I saw that number. And then if we just look at the people playing with mods, we have an average playtime of 5 hours for someone that plays the vanilla game, but it's 21.5 hours for someone that has at least one mod or custom asset installed. So we can see that it's just an insane increase of value, and that's something with the pirates have trouble with too, that they just don't get that extra value. And we see that reflected in community too. We see such a positive surge of people that want to interact with each other purely because there's a chance to create something. We see amazing modding teams being built. We see modders talk to each other at all times. They have their tiny, hidden, closed chats and communities where they're conspiring against us and planning to do their own game. But
just Steam chat, that's all it is. We all actually kind of add each other outside of the forums and stuff, and we kind of do have a tight network of the top contributors that are all talking to each other and helping each other out. So if you have a question, we have forums and Reddit that you can find all the modders on if you're just getting started off too. So.
Let's see, it's a community that even has a sub-community. I think that says a lot for the value and the kind of power that it has. So, I don't know, my core point in this is mostly saying that if you are a part of a community that features modding, you have a chance to participate in more than your voice and more than your feedback or your thumbs on Facebook or up likes or your upvotes on Reddit, sorry. You have a chance to become part of the game. And from my experience, this is something that players perceive as incredibly valuable, and it just makes the game so much more. And eventually you see a lot of players actually stop playing and just modding because it's so satisfactory. And I don't know, that Skyline is just a prime example of modding going very well, and of course it's a joy taking care of such a community.
I've actually modded more than I've played the game, I think, at this point. I think my hours played are about 250, but hours modded, which isn't really factored in. But if I had to guess, it's probably 400 hours modding.
But then you're also a professional, so you spend quite some time on your mods.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, that's my core point. something that makes us all happy. And of course, it gives us the chance to see kind of what we can add to the game, what people want. I mean, it gives us kind of this feedback tool where we know that, oh, 200,000 people subscribe to this gameplay mod, maybe it's a good idea to add. And actually, I think Carlene has quite a lot to say about that.
Yeah. I could start by actually telling you a bit about Colossal Order, because it's kind of the core of how we work is who we are. So we are a team of 14 people based in Finland. We're an independent game studio, but we work with publishers, so far only Paradox, but we love them. So we know how to make games, we don't know how to sell them. Kind of coming to Skylines is, for us, we really wanted the game to be moddable right from the start. So we have previous experience with the Cities in Motion series. So what we did with the first one was that we actually used our in-house engine. And what this meant was that it was really easy to mod. It was basically open. Anyone could do anything with the game. And it also meant that a lot of people liked to mod the game. And it really kind of made the whole game seem more fun. People were really into modding, and they wanted to kind of pick it up where we left it. And then with the sequel, Cities in Motion 2, we switched to Unity and kind of thought that since with the first one, the modders just kind of got along and they knew how to do anything with the game. And we really didn't think that it would be a problem. But with Unity being so close, it actually was. And it wasn't easy to mod, and it meant that there was less mods and kind of less people playing and less interest, and the community wasn't so active. So we knew from experience that for Skylines, we only wanted to have modding and to support that. And this kind of the extra value that the community and mods bring was huge. So from the very start, we knew that this is something that we absolutely need to have. So this brings me to my next point, which is that, well, it's a sandbox game. And sandboxes are all about self-expression and creativity and just doing your own thing, basically. So it kind of plays into the modding really well. I personally consider kind of using the modding tools to be part of playing the game, because it's actually creativity, creating stuff with the game engine in a similar way as when you're actually playing the game, then you create cities with the tools that we give. So in the same way, for me, it's just playing the game. Some people enjoy building cities, and other people enjoy building items for the game. And it's all the creativity and that kind of enjoyment that people get out of it. To kind of to encourage modding even further, what we wanted to do was to have sort of these steps, so that when people pick up the game, they might just go and play it for a while, and then they come up with an idea like, I want a new park, I need new buildings, something isn't right, I want to create my own thing. So then we have the asset editor that basically allows you to choose a lot size and then use the assets that are in the game. You can use those freely and just save your creation and have it in your game. And one thing that people really love to do with it is to create intersections with the roads, just to make the perfect intersection, save it, and then just place it in your city. So it's much easier than making the same intersection by hand every time you play the game. So we wanted to kind of guide the players towards these tools and make them feel comfortable using those. So at one point when they are making the park of their dreams, maybe, they will come up with the idea that they need a statue or something, so it's missing. And they might go and model one or ask someone else to do it, and then they can import it, get to know how the system works, and just use it in their own creation. So this is kind of working towards getting the people to create content, to use the game engine to its fullest, and kind of gently getting towards heavy modding. So all of the content naturally is valuable. So some people just make the parks with the ready-made assets, and that's absolutely fine. The park packs are really popular still. So all of this is kind of to just help people to get into the modding. So for those who enjoy it, they will find lots of extra enjoyment and lots of hours to play with the game by just handling the modding tools and finding out what they can do. From a design point of view, as I'm working as the designer, one thing that really is wonderful with the modding and the Steam workshop is that I actually can get feedback of what people want to have in the game. Because with the previous games, we of course could ask the players, like, what would you like to have? But this is a problem, because if I ask it on the forums, we know that on the forums there are not all of the players are on the forums. I can only reach the ones that most likely have had a problem or they want to complain. So that's why they come to the forums, and if I ask only those people what they would want for the game, it might be a really different answer than what the people who just play the game and enjoy it, they might want really different things. But since we are seeing that so many people are actually using mods, it's fairly safe to just look at what has been downloaded the most, what's popular in the workshop, and thinking that this is something that the game really needs. So it's kind of a wish list also, and this plays into what John was talking about, how all of this is kind of the community coming together in creating a better game. So we get inspired by the mods, we want to know what the players want, and we want to give the players the things that they are asking for. So if we find really popular mods that we think that we could maybe do better, kind of integrate them nicer into the UI, or just generally have it work better, we might be doing those. And I know that one of the most successful mods when the game launched was a simple button to change the direction of a one-way street. And like when I saw that one, like 2 days after the release, I just went like, why didn't we do this? Like, this should have been in the game. So we immediately made an update and added it to the game, nicer than what the mod had done. And
No offense, but
No offense, exactly.
It was nice enough.
Yeah. The UI is kind of hard to work with. But then I think it was up to like 25% of people that own the game actually used that mod. So then we could give it to the rest of the players, because it's fairly certain that the rest of the people were also looking for that button, but maybe they just didn't know how to get it. So that was a perfect example of something that we had missed, and the community in this way kind of reminded us that, hey, we need this one tiny button to get the game working as we want. So there are kind of, it's a way to actually affect what happens with the game, what kind of content we are creating for it.
I can actually chime in there, and the slide that we have up here is Traffic++. How many here are using that mod?
yeah.
It is a very good mod. For those of you that don't know, it takes the traffic simulation model in the game and improves it vastly. And the natural question, of course, is that why aren't you guys using this vastly superior traffic model? Because in vanilla, there are situations where the traffic behaves like weirdly in some instances, and you have lane changes and other like super nerdy stuff that doesn't really behave as you would intend it to. But the problem is, and this is the other side of the coin, if we would do this, it would mean that we would have to sacrifice other things. The system requirements would have to be higher because you need more computational power to do traffic simulation that's more accurate. And that would mean, of course, raising the system requirements means that a lot of you perhaps wouldn't be able to run the game as smooth as you could. And most importantly, it would mean that we couldn't probably have as big cities. And having big cities is very important to us. So it's a weird trade-off, and it's not necessarily something that's very evident when you're just doing stuff. You're like, oh, those lazy developers, why don't they just improve it? But it's a conscious decision in order to keep the game as accessible. It's a trade-off, right? So we have a kind of a good enough situation for the traffic. Of course, it could be better, but it's one of the tricky things. So I remember when we were ahead of launch, there was some criticism about us being lazy because we were not adding enough stuff and we're just relying on the community to do everything. But it was really kind of a trade-off balance, and those kind of discussions maybe we should have made more transparent, that by not going crazy with the traffic simulation, it meant that we could reach more people and have more people enjoy the game, essentially. Keep on going.
Yeah, actually, another example of this kind of trade-off, and especially about performance, is that yesterday we published a new development diary that actually talked about how we are adding in the expansion the possibility for people to actually make these building collections, so that they can actually choose the style of buildings for a district. And the reason why this is something that we created for the modders and didn't do ourselves is that it affects the performance greatly. It depends on how well made the buildings are, how optimized they are. But this way, people who want a certain style, Chinatown, maybe a medieval village at some point, they can choose how much they want to sacrifice of the performance, and they can really customize the game to their liking. But if we would have enabled this to all of the players at once and added like tons of styles, someone would put all of those on, then the computer would catch fire, and it's our fault. So we wanted to kind of ease into it. So we have made, we are making an example of how the styles work, and then we are handing it over to modders and seeing what comes up. So for me, it's really exciting to always see what kind of stuff people can do with the tools we give them.
To get some perspective on computers burning up, we did some early tests this summer with the whole Traffic++ AI, and I think a city of 200,000 took roughly a minute per day to simulate just because of the traffic numbers. So it was very heavy strain on the game itself, and of course it would be awesome to have, but
Yeah.
I mean, having a minute per day in City Skylines would make it a very tedious experience for a lot of players, and this was on a good computer, so for people playing on toasters, which is pretty much the minimum requirements, it would have been a mess.
Yeah, and we only want to kind of not hit the system requirements too high, because then it shuts out a lot of people. So we want to kind of make sure that there is the possibility, at least through modding, to make good use of the hardware you have. But then again, for the people who don't have that good machines, they should be able to play. So I think we could switch on to Gula then.
All right, so after I'm done talking, we've got some microphones that are set up. So while I'm talking, if you guys have questions that you guys want to ask, Q&A right after we're done, you can start to form your lines kind of now. I just didn't want there to be like a massive rush for things. Anyway, so I'm Gula, and I got my success really from following... What I should really mention first off is that anyone can really start to mod. There are multiple types of modders that are out there in the world, and those modders don't have to be programmers or artists. Anyone that, quite literally, anyone who plays this game, as I think John was saying, like everybody is a content creator. I've seen some awesome content come out from people on Twitch, on YouTube, stuff that I didn't even think of to do. But oftentimes, I mean, there are people that play the game that are way better at the game than I have been, or I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I always find myself, I'll catch myself every now and then, like, here I am watching someone on Twitch right now, and I don't know. So it's pretty interesting. But if you're coming from the perspective of you want to add something to the game, like actually, change the way that the game maybe runs for you, I've got 3 letters for you in order for you to be able to figure it out, and that's DLC. But not actually in that order. It's more of like L, C, and D. And what I mean by that is learn, create, and distribute. And if you're going to make any sort of mod, you at least have to suffice probably about 2.5 of those. And so by learning, if you're wanting to learn the process, we have multiple avenues for you that are available to do that. So whether that's Reddit or if you want to message us individually, you can go out on your own. I personally went to a college for this. I went to Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, and yeah, but I'm active on all the different communities. So we've got actually a Wikipedia that a lot of the modders have kind of banded together, and we went out on our own and sort of formed this Wikipedia of information that I think we've got some.
Wait, there's another wiki?
Yeah, we have like skylines.wiki.com or wiki.skylines.com or something. Did you not know about that?
We have our wiki. Why do you have your own?
No, I think that's the one that we use. So I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so you're gonna have to learn something at some point in time, whether that's even like learning how you import something in the game, or it could just be, creating a road. That is, how do you lay the road down? How do you make an optimized road? That's all part of the learning process. Now, as far as creating stuff, you're going to need to know a program or two. I would personally suggest anything from like Photoshop, Blender. You're going to need to push polygons and paint some pixels at some point in time. There's plenty of free options that are available. There's plenty of paid options as well, but any of those things can get you started. And even if you don't know it at all, the tools and resources are out there for you to be able to learn those sorts of things. Now, if you want to code something, I don't know how to do that. So I know it's available out there, but
There are books to read.
Yeah, I just make art. I make pretty things. So anyway, and then another part of the creation process, and actually one of the great tools that is included with Skylines, is when you import your mod into the game, they've got this really awesome, it's kind of like a baker thing. And we used to have to use, as artists, we use a baking program. It can vary. It can be like XNormal or something like that. But there's actually a program that is built in, or like a functionality that you guys have, which is really great. It does a pretty good job, but I would highly suggest at least making a custom LOD. I know that might be above some people's heads, but we really appreciate it when we see mods that are the full package. Like, it's got its basic model, and then it's got its distance away, far away model. And then the last part of making mods is really the distribution process. So making all these mods is great, and learning all that cool stuff that you learned is great, but if nobody sees what you've made, then what good is painting the Mona Lisa? What good is making these awesome things that are, you want to share with the community? So there's lots of ways that you can go about doing that, and with the integration through Steam, you can literally upload it right to the workshop. They've got it all built into the game now, where when I make an update to a mod, it's just, or actually, even when I release a mod, it's really simple. You just go into the content browser, you press the submit button, and it is there. People can just go right onto your workshop page, and actually, as someone who doesn't mod for the game, you can just go onto the Steam Workshop, press the subscribe button, and it's already in your game. You just have to either restart or something, and it's there. So that integration is great, but also too, you've got certain things like Twitch, and there's a lot of big Twitch streamers that are out there. I personally always go to like the Dizzy Disaster stream, and he's the guy that always kind of does simulation style games, and this is actually a really great game to do Twitch streams with. And part of the reason for that is because of the slower pace, and you can kind of talk about why you're doing the things that you're doing, and you kind of like, hey, I want to go back to that road that I built last night, and I want to make it even more cool. Or maybe you just want to build only residential everywhere. Like, ignore what the RCI meter says, and you just want to do houses everywhere. Something crazy like that. And then also, too, we have Let's Play videos on YouTube. So one of our bigger YouTuber guys is Yuto, and Yuto creates some of the crazy content. He's probably one of the best guys that I've seen do roads. And it's absolutely amazing. He made like the Nintendo road, the tribute to Miyazaki, or not Miyamoto tribute, I think, right? Yeah, or something.
Wasn't that a park?
Yeah. So all I know is that Yuto makes the craziest roads, and he's been doing like constructing Japan as one of his things too. So, but yeah, you guys can be any age to really kind of start modding. We've even got like a very young modder. He's only 16 years old. He won our summer modding contest. His name's Drosevilla, and his stuff is, I look at his, if you guys think that my stuff is good, I implore you to check out other people on the marketplace, please. Because like, some of my favorite mods that are out there are actually mods that don't even have all that many subscribers. Like, just because it's on the top doesn't mean like, oh, it's the best, but there are some mods that are really great and only have like 300 subscribers, and you'll see me pop on from time to time and comment on those and say, this looks really cool. So that's part of the whole process, really. And yep, so that's part of what I do. And I love being part of the community, honestly. Thank you to you guys for bringing me here. And it really wouldn't be without the players and the community that I feel like that we've all kind of built. That's the reason why I'm here. So I appreciate it. But yeah, Q&A time maybe?
I have a couple of things before we move on to Q&A.
So do I.
We get a lot of questions from people regarding how do I get into the games industry, and the inevitable answer is make games, right? And then we come back to the thing, oh, but I don't know how to program, or I don't know how to make games, and the follow-up is do mods. You can start in some end or form. A lot of games besides ours have great tutorials or documentation. Dota, TF2, they have excellent source guides that you can use to get into modding, and that's a great way to get into the industry. And it's a very safe place to start by taking something that somebody else built and making it even better. So that's a common question I get.
Yeah, I got lucky as far as that goes, because like I was originally going to mod a different game at first. I was gonna. Who here has played Banished by chance? Okay, awesome. That's another independent game. It's made by like 1 or 2 people. I think one guy made like the entire game. But I was going to start making content for that, but the modability of that game was pretty tough to do. But that's really, and it's nothing against the guy. Like I still love that game, honestly. But anyway, and then yeah, lo and behold, you guys, the ease of access for artists to make content for this game, it's pretty unrivaled. I mean, if you know how to generate an FBX, and if you know how to make a Targa or a JPEG, this game can get your content into the game. Like, it's very simple to do.
Yeah, I'd also like to note that actually our programmers also hang out in the modding community. So you might actually even meet some of the Colossal people when you're kind of finding help on making your mods. And I know that they also answer the questions. So if you are having trouble with something and you ask help in a technical question, and someone who really knows their stuff comes and answers, it might be some of us.
I mean, we went out of our way to make sure that the game was moddable, and we added tools to make it easy to mod, even if you don't know how to do game development, right? But there are a lot of examples out there, and we know this from experience of games that from the outset are not the least bit moddable, but people just crack them open and do weird shit. And the best example I have is Just Cause 2. How many have played Just Cause 2? How many have played the multiplayer mod in Just Cause 2? Before I joined Paradox, I worked at Avalanche Studios, and this is a single-player game, and we used to ask the engineering team, like, can't we do multiplayer for this game? And they just laughed. The game doesn't have a single line of network code, and somehow they modded 1,000-man multiplayer mode into the thing, which is, I think, the crown. Yeah, you can, like, they have 1,000 players at the same time tethered to 2 747s. It's crazy. It is truly crazy. I think this is the crowning achievement of mankind. Okay, we put a man on the moon, but 1,000 players in a game that doesn't have a single line of network code, I think that's pretty impressive. Do you have a thing?
Yeah, I was currently going to say earlier that just modding or mods increase activity in the community, and that was just a really good point of just another way modding really makes a game's community better is that there's just so much to talk about, and talking about modding things also makes people want to talk about other things, and that can create a very vivid and living community. And it's just really fun to see that just giving that kind of option, that kind of creativity to players also makes them interact with the game to a much higher level that you only otherwise see in, say, an esports title or something that really requires that kind of constant interaction.
Esports.
Oh, yeah, that's good timing. I'm actually impressed. We put together this PowerPoint randomly with just a lot of random building pictures from the modding community, and it's been on time with our talking points several times throughout this panel.
Thank you.
Very well slided, Shams.
Yeah.
Bleed blue. Hashtag bleed blue. EG. No? Aww.
Okay, so let's move on to some questions now.
I want to start off by saying I love the game. I've played hours and hours of it. It's great. My question is, what games in the past that were openly moddable helped in inspiring you to make your game openly moddable?
So what games in the past that were moddable inspired us to make this moddable? Like, first off, like, we when we set out to make this game, we wanted to do a modern take on a classic city builder. So we looked at the older city builders a whole lot. And SimCity 4, of course, was very iconic and classic in its day. And SimCity 4 had and still has an amazing modding community. The buildings that they put together, when we saw that, we said, you know what, we have to try to modernize this in some way. And even if we can find a way where you could take the buildings from that old game and put them in this game, would be amazing. That game, at least from the business end, when we discussed it, we looked obviously a lot at Skyrim as well, and the Elder Scrolls series, and all the crazy stuff that happens in those games. Did you see the mod where they replaced the dragon with the Thomas the Tank Engine?
Of course.
It's the scariest thing ever. It's super, super scary. It is like stuff of nightmares. So that was, but what about...
You should see the mounts that they've got. If you think that that's bad, some of the mounts are even better. They've got the Sanic mod, too. And, yeah.
Do you go really fast on that?
You got to go real fast. Yeah.
But Carolina, what did you have there?
I could maybe add that from a development point of view, modding was something that we knew from Cities in Motion 1 that it's a great thing to have. And also what we only hoped was that since Cities in Motion 1 was kind of a niche game, not everyone thinks that public transportation is sexy.
It is, for the record.
That's their loss, of course. But kind of for a wider audience that we assume that is maybe not as skilled with micromanagement and not as interested in micromanaging things, we just hoped that modding will really take off and that the players will love to do it, and it really paid off this time.
Honestly, the Steam Workshop kind of played its role too, since with like Dota 2 and TF2, it got very well implemented, and really they worked on it a lot the last years. It's a lot easier to motivate adding modding to a Steam game now that there's this just base structure there, where, as you mentioned earlier, you can press one button and you have the mod in the game.
On the other end of the spectrum, Paradox has released a number of games that were moddable, and we also had tools and editors for them, but they were impossible to use. And so we learned from those mistakes and set out to make something that, like, even our CEO would be able to build a park.
Even Fred.
Yeah.
Also, did the failure of like the new SimCity and how they didn't support modding at all help reinforce that it's a good idea to...
No, but I think it was more about that. We liked the game and we played it a fair bit, but we came to the same conclusion that I think large parts of the big fan base came to, and that was that they were looking for something else and something extra where they could actually add their mark to the game, besides just creating cities, and that's what came out of it. So we listened to kind of what the community wanted and what the fan base wanted, and we tried to give them that rather than just doing something we ourselves liked.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hi. So you guys were mentioning the high amount of mods for this game. I was curious about what type are like the most of them are. What's the most popular type?
Would they be the maps or save games, actually?
It's maps, save games, parks, and intersections mostly, because that's kind of the entry level to modding. So that's what you see a lot. A lot of people, create an intersection that they think is, well, this looks cool, or this is very practical, or it's shaped like a penis.
It might be it's super effective.
But
I don't know about that, but some of the intersections can be very, very efficient. They're the Timbo? There it is, right there. I actually am subscribed to all of those.
Timbo is amazing.
Yeah, that's really great stuff that he's got there. What was it? I have one mod that has over, I think, 160,000 subscriptions, and that's just like a basic building. It's actually a building from my hometown in Tampa, and it's not the same name, but it's close. And
But I think his is more. I think all the top mods are intersections right now when it comes
yeah.
to download. Yeah, the first page is sometimes just 2 pages of Timbo.
Yeah, definitely.
If you bought the game right now, you can go right into the editor and start making roads without almost even knowing nothing about the game, and then publish a mod. Like, that's how quickly it can get out there. And who knows, you might have the best road that we don't know about yet. I mean, the only real reason, in all honesty, that we use the Timbo stuff is because they add great gameplay. Things that I don't want to sit there and draw that thing out every time, so I'd rather have it like a template that I could just plop down, like, what if I want 7 of them right next to each other? So it's really great to have that.
But another part of it is that there are probably a lot of mods that could be created that we haven't really enabled the creation of yet. So we're always eager to hear what the fans are interested in seeing more of in the game, because that will allow the dev team then to create more tools and stuff that allows entirely new types of mods to come about, right? And I think that's the reason why we see Dota coming about in a game, and we see this in the StarCraft 2 editor. It has such depth, so you can recreate, like, you can create MMOs and weirdness in that game.
Didn't someone make like a third-person shooter in the StarCraft 2?
I think they did, and there is a first-person mod for Skylines.
There are several. There's
Yeah.
actually one of the screenshots earlier we're taking with the first-person mod when someone was on their balcony. I think it's like number 3 or 4, which is really good looking.
Yeah, but no guns yet in the game.
And you had no idea that these things were really going to be created? I mean, that could not have been the design plan. Like, oh, watch, someone's going to turn this into like a first-person shooter, and lo and behold, there it is. But
I had a very emotional and dramatic moment a few weeks prior to launch when I asked, will it be possible to mod more than 9 tiles? And someone laughed at me. They're like, ha, 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 no, that's going to be impossible. And then like a month after, we have the 81 tiles mod going, and it was actually fully functional. So we were very surprised at what was there, and I think a lot of us are hoping to see, I mean, it's kind of a core pillar of the game, is that hopefully with every big update / expansion, we are going to somehow add to or improve modding, and you're going to see that in this expansion, you're going to see it in future ones too, that we just want you to be able to do more. And I don't know if everyone has their personal dream, but I want to see a tower defense game, because City Skylines is like made to be a tower defense.
Cool.
So unfortunately, I missed your whole panel, so I don't know if you touched on this at
it's
all.
on YouTube.
But yeah, so I'm very interested in modding. I love downloading mods, but I have no idea how to even get started. I've recently started trying to learn programming. What do you guys recommend if you're just getting into it? What type of languages or what type of program should I get started with?
I would recommend learning several languages, but I think Unity uses C#. Right?
C#, yeah.
C#. I'd focus on that, but like the general tip for all programmers is to learn several languages, because it'll be useful.
Another thing is, if you're new to programming altogether, it might be worthwhile to check out other engines. So while there is Unity, I personally kind of like Unreal, and Unreal has the blueprint system, which it's all kind of node-based, and you can kind of see the flow of how your architecture is and stuff like that. And so that really all plays into it as well. And then there's other things like Code Academy and everything that will teach you all the other skills that you need. But there's never really like one quick solution for it, I don't think. And it's definitely the amount of time that you put into it is probably what you're going to get out of it too. So
I know a fair bunch of programmers are going to be mad at me for saying this, but I also think that Java is a very good point of starting, just because it's such like a high-tier language that it's kind of you just telling your computer to do stuff. Which means it's really, really easy to kind of get into the programming thinking. But then we also have, as we mentioned earlier, a very, very active community that converses a lot. So if you have the passion and the want, you can probably easily on our forums find other people that do programming mods, and they can kind of take you into the mindset and help you, just doing these small things that get you rolling. And then I have an experience of that accelerating kind of quickly into you becoming deeply involved in modding, because it kind of consumes people.
All right, cool.
thank you. Yeah.
Welcome. This gentleman over here.
Sorry.
Hey, so I'm a programmer, and so when you have so many mods out there, so I'm kind of curious on how do you deal with compatibility? So when you update the game, how do you ensure that all the mods continue to work? And if I'm a modder, what can I expect? Like every time you update, should I expect to have to go fix the mod or ensure that it works, every update?
Well, our take on this is that we can't test 50,000 mods every time we update, but we try to do things so that they wouldn't actually break anything if we just have the option of going that way. Usually,
The modders are pretty good about it.
yeah, and kind of like it is often that some of the mods break or need updating, but people are really updating them quite fast, and the players are asking for updates. Like right now, the Traffic Plus hasn't been updated in some time, and players are really actively wanting an update. So they understand that this is kind of what they would want the modders to actually do to keep the mods up to date.
In some ways, you can kind of think of it like if you make a really successful mod on like the week of launch, and all of a sudden 180,000 people are using your mod, well, you kind of got tired of the game and you stopped playing. But what the game now realizes, what the game players realize is like, this mod was amazing. Well, you're off somewhere else on vacation and you're not playing anymore. But people have grown dependent on that mod. It's actually up to you as the content creator to kind of take care of that, or people are just going to unsubscribe from it. And I think that there's kind of an unspoken law that throughout most modders, we don't really rely on Colossal to do things. I mean, we definitely appreciate the transparency that we've got, especially up to this point. It's like we know what's coming. The dev diaries always help out for like, hey, guess what? We're going to start using the illumination map as part of doing the coloration for the windows at nighttime. That's good information for us to even start practicing now, and then we can start to ask questions and we keep the dialogue going. And that's really about the expectation for developers that are out there and trying to get into the modding stuff. It's like, if you can have that channel, this avenue of communication, that's really where you're going to probably see the most success, I would say.
It's also worth mentioning that often, at least when we release large updates, we do have the kind of minor part of the Q&A process or QA processes that we test like the 10, 15 most popular mods and see if they break something drastically. And I mean, if there's a mod with 200,000 subscribers and it kills the game or it wipes your saves or does something that's worse than just saying, no, this is an error or kind of minor things, then we do try to work around it because we know that we have a lot of modders.
I did not know that.
And in the, like, if we can't really help that the mod breaks, we will automatically disable it and notify the players.
Oh, cool.
So just kind of trying to make sure that the game, even with mods, mostly works for most of the people, even with the update.
Yeah, another part of this is, of course, that a lot of mods often depend on other mods. And I don't know if I'm breaking an NDA now, but we know that Valve is kind of planning on adding tags to the mods, so you can add dependencies between mods. So if you install a mod, it installs all the dependencies as well. Just like when you install a game, it just reinstalls all the redists the first time. So kind of a similar thing. So it'll be easier because sometimes mods just depend on a bajillion other mods.
I'm pretty sure it just broke an NDA, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's still nice functionality.
Any other questions?
I think there was one over here.
So for Gula, your buildings are so detailed and it's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm wondering what's your preferred ways of optimizing those so they don't kill frames per second.
All right, so here's the thing. I actually really like to stack my shells, my UV shells, and for some reason, and I think it's because, I'm going to get a little bit technical, sorry everybody, but I feel like the people at Colossal really like to bake AO onto their stuff, and when you bake AO onto a model, you typically don't have to stack your shells, or you shouldn't, because all the AO is always going to be differently. Anyway, with mine, I don't even do that at all. Instead, I use a mod that adds ambient occlusion, like screen space ambient occlusion, back into the game. And so by contrast with that mod, now I can just make like one really awesome brick texture and use that all over the building. So one of the ways that I find quality is to still, actually, what's funny is I have a gigantic building, the Kingdom Tower, which is that like huge tower that hasn't been built yet. It only uses a 512 by 512 tiling texture on the entire building, and that building is massive. And it's also one of the lowest tri-count buildings that I've had too. But if you think about the building in its simplest form, like all you're really doing is making an abstraction of what you perceive in reality. And yeah, just basically simplify, 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 even though like the details are there with the simplification. So it will really come out. I think it depends on like how you perceive it maybe, so. Hopefully that helps you out, or anybody out. I'll be around.
I had one other question.
Sure.
When it comes to getting Unity moddable, what are some of the big challenges with that? Because Unity is pretty closed.
The question was, when it comes to getting
Unity to
moddable?
be friendly to modders and not just to developers that have the source code.
So you mean how we actually...
do it?
Yeah, well, it is challenging, and that's why we created the in-game tools, like the asset editor, to kind of get around the limitations, because Unity would kill us if we would just open up the whole engine and give it out. And we can't assume that all of the modders will actually buy a Unity license. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and there are really no shortcuts when it comes to the engine stuff. So that I think, didn't we have one resource full-time on modding from
Yeah.
the very first day? Because we knew that it would be an important thing.
And that's actually it's a true testament to like how it actually went, where it was like literally day one that I was playing the game. I played the game for the first like 5 hours, and then I was like, all right, I need to fix something about this. I don't know what it is, but I like this game so much right now that I want to go fix something. I looked right over and picked out like a coal power plant, and the rest is history, man. So it's just like I generate an FBX, make some textures, put it in the import folder, and it's pretty much done. So if you, I'm really truncating a lot. I'm truncating like 4 years of college here, but yeah.
But we only spent resources on creating the tools that allow the modding, because Unity isn't in itself really allowing modding. So we made tools especially to have this, and we still do. And even we ourselves find new stuff all the time. Like originally with the day and night cycle, we said that we will never do it because it looked like it isn't technically possible. But then the programmers worked their magic, and suddenly they found a way.
Honestly, correct me if I'm wrong here, Carolina, but since he asked for the biggest challenge, wouldn't the biggest challenge just be time then? Because it's so time-consuming to create these tools and make them work well. Because you actually have to create something entirely new to interact with the game. It's like you're adding a system to a system.
Yeah. Like if we only would have created the game, like how you make cities and how you build the roads, that would have taken up a lot less time than during the game, and then actually the modding tools on top of that. So it was something that we only felt that will give a lot of extra value to the game, and that's why we spend so much time on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Yes, there's holding up the evil time sign. Thank you so much for coming out. This totally made the 16-hour flight from Stockholm worth it.
San Diego.
We'll be hanging around. Come by and talk to us. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.